Hi, everyone. Welcome to Florida with Ngemera. Today we have episode 4 and we have a special guest. Her name is Doreen Ngemera. And yesterday, as I was preparing the format for this interview, I was trying to find an adjective to describe you, but I don't think there is. Doreen's just going to be her own adjective. Doreen is just Doreen. There's so much to get into. So we're going to have her tell us a bit about herself, who's Doreen, and just give us a little overview, and then we'll get to the questions.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so to introduce myself, my name is Doreen Ngemera. I am currently 17 years old. I study at UWC South Africa, about to go to my last year of high school. In terms of what I do, I'm an author. Currently, I've already published one novel, which I did at the age of 15. And one thing that I'm very passionate about is climate change. So I'm a very involved with climate action. So far, I've started different initiatives such as a Full Climate Action Program, which aims to spread climate education to young people. And pretty much, so yeah, I'm very involved in the climate change movement as well as writing and pretty much just very short about myself. Yeah.
Okay, I love that. Last episode we had an author. Today we have another one. So one question that I ask authors is what inspired you to write a book? There are people who love writing, but not a lot of people think I'm going to write a book and I'm actually going to publish it. So
yeah.
What inspired you to write it? And then what inspired you to actually get it out there?
Get it out there, right? Okay, so I'd say what inspired me to write. First of all, I'm a reader. I love reading books. And I'd say for most writers, you find that whoever's writing, they really love reading as well. So I'd say reading and writing goes hand in hand. But in terms of what inspired me, I remember at the age of 10, I wouldn't read so many books. For example, at my school library, I'd read so many books. But then I found out that there were books written by African authors. However, there wasn't really much of them. So it was more of authors from the Western world. So I wanted to make a change, change the narrative a bit. And I was like, you know what? I want to write books so that young people in Tanzania and in Africa could be reading books that are written by Africans or by Tanzanians. So I'd say that's my biggest drive.
I love that. I love when people are inspired by filling the gap between, given the people in their area or people like them don't do certain things, or people who do it, but you don't really see it because African writers are not as appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember back in school, I did literature, so we did this entire topic of why African literature is not out there. And it was an entire topic, but I hated that it just ended there, where they'd tell us, okay, African literature is not widespread because, one, there's no funds for many Africans to write books, or so and so, but they didn't really motivate us as literature people to write books and to get them out there. Nobody ever pushes you. So you need to find that drive from yourself.
Yeah, it's trying to drive for sure.
Yeah. So after you wrote the book, after that you got the inspiration, what was the publishing process like? Was it what were the difficulties? What were the best parts of it? If it was within editing, was it nice that you could get to, it was your book and you could customize it the way you wanted? Or what was the publishing process like for you as a 15-year-old?
Okay, as a 15-year-old, actually, so I started this process when I was 13, right? So really, so it ended at 15. But I'd say one thing, so this was a shorter book because I'm currently working on another one, and I'd say I'm facing more challenges than the first one. However, at that time, I'd say editing was pretty smooth. There wasn't really much, maybe except for a few grammar issues. But however, my story did have flow. So that was a good thing. So even in terms of the person who edited my book, it had flow. And then one thing that I'd wish I'd changed, because my book, so when I found a person to do the illustrations, it was during COVID times, and we tried to find a way to deal with it easily because everyone was, couldn't really meet up face to face. So we found someone who was actually from the US to do illustrations. So at that time, I didn't really put much thought into it, but the illustrations I should say in my book are Western illustrations.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd say that's the challenge that I face. That right now, if I were to go back, I'd change that, because at the same time, as I mentioned, my story, I wanted to change the narrative and have books written by Africans or books written by Tanzanians. However, my illustrations don't really fit me and see. So so I'd say that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's great to always look back at a project you've done before and see how you can do better, because if everyone always says that the first thing you do will never be perfect. You'll never be I did my best in that one.
Exactly.
So there's always a chance to grow. Again, I'm going to touch on the African artist section, because I my biggest inspiration is a girl named Marley Dias. I don't know if you know her, but she started a 1,000 Black Girl Book campaign because she didn't see people like her in storybooks.
Okay.
And she started that campaign so she could collect many books and distribute them to libraries in her area so that girls like her could see themselves in literature and in art. And I think that's really important for people to be able to be properly represented in media, if it's in books, if it's in TV, and anyone and everyone can do it. It doesn't have to be writing. If you love singing, you can sing about the African world, what it's like growing up as a kid. If you love drawing, if you love playing, you could play for your country. It's just anyone can do anything to make someone feel seen. So let's talk about the feedback from your book, because right now we're in the section of your book because we're going to touch everything about it. Okay, let's go into the feedback that you've gotten from your book. And last episode it talks about criticism with Sandra, and we touched on it a little bit, but I think it's important to talk more about criticism because as a person who puts things out to the world for the public eye, everyone's going to have something to say. So what feedback did you get? If it was good and if it was bad, how were you able to keep going if it was like not necessarily helpful feedback, and how were you able to distinguish whether it was helpful feedback or if it was just people saying stuff?
All right, okay. So of course, as you mentioned, whenever people do give feedback, there's always going to be positive feedback and negative feedback, right? And in terms of positive feedback, I did get positive feedback, and I'd say the positives did outweigh the negative feedback. For example, people would of course tell me, "Oh, this book is well written, it's very engaging, I really love it." And the book that I wrote, it was actually supposed to be a series, so there's supposed to be a continuation. And they'd always ask me, "When are you writing the new book? Like, when's the next book coming out? When's the next book coming out? I can't wait to see what happens." So that's like the positive feedback, those type of comments. However, speaking about negative comments, for sure, yeah. Like, I'd say like the way my book is structured, so it was mainly for a younger audience. So for example, if you've read, for example, there's a book called North Diaries, which is, pretty much like
Tweenies,
it's like kid based, like for a younger audience. So it's like a narrative based. So I think I remember once, I don't know who, I remember reading this comment where someone was like, "Oh, it's just like North Diaries, So that color, right? So like, of course, I was like, that of course put me down. But then I was like, okay, it really did put me down. However, when I told my parents about it, I spoke to them. They're like, there's always going to be people who are going to be there to put you down. However, despite those people putting you down, there's always people who are also there cheering on you. There's so many people who are like, "Wow, amazed at what you do," in the background that you may never even know about it until you meet people that are like, "Oh, your book is really cool." Then you're like, "What?" So there's people actually appreciating my, my work, but then despite the negative comments that I'm getting. So I'd say one thing is honestly just not focusing so much on the negative comments, especially if they're not even, there's like constructive criticism where it actually builds you up, and there's criticism there to put you down. So if you focus more on the constructive criticism, which focuses on how can I improve myself and how to improve your work, then I think that's the best thing to focus on. But at the same time, if you feel like the negative comments or things that are like putting you down, you can even just take time to just sit down and reflect and just, but don't let it stop.
Yeah,
don't let it stop you. Like, you should just keep going. Like, that's
okay. As a young person in the writing industry, I think especially given our environment, like a society, at the setting that we exist in, this is a topic that I haven't seen many people talk about. But as like being a young person, especially here, because young people are not very empowered or not given opportunities to do a lot of stuff. Not that young people aren't doing anything, people are. But being a young person, when you do something like this, when you write a book or when you like speak in public, it's, if you're not in a competitive environment, the feedback that people give is not always, how do I put this? Not always helpful. Like, they'll think that because you're a child, they will lower the expectations of your abilities as a child. And so they'll be like, "Oh, she's just a kid, so it's good for, like, as a kid." So when you're in those environments or when you're in those areas where you maybe personally have done something and you don't think it's your best, but everyone around you tells you that it is. Has that ever happened to you? And like, because I don't really see anyone ever talk about this as a young person when you pursue things, never getting constructive criticism.
Actually, so in terms of actual constructive criticism, there is people who do. So, like, for example, I'd meet some people and be like, next time in your book, for example, the illustrations, like, try to have more, people who, like, do represent us, of course. Like, there's people who do give out that criticism. However, I would say, I don't know if it's people not wanting to put down the hopes of, like, little children or young people, maybe. That's why they give positive feedback. However, I'd say there is some people who do, give constructive criticism.
So I think it's all about learning how to give.
Yeah, like, I think,
you don't have to criticize someone all the time, because sometimes someone really has done like a good job.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like a little thing. So personally, like, I know you, and I know the stuff that you do, and I've attended some of your events and they've been amazing. And I mentioned your climate action that you organized the program. Let's get back to the root of like the first initial debut teens meet.
Okay.
Let's go into the planning process. Let's go into when that idea sparks in your head. Like, I should start an event. Like, give us the whole story.
Okay, so Teens Meet was actually inspired by, so during COVID again, I think so many things were like,
oh my gosh, having like, free time, having free time
gets you exactly just gets you thinking like, what should I do?
Yeah.
So during COVID, actually, I remember me and my cousins would have these meetings online, like Zoom meetings, right? Where we'd meet actually every week. So just present about different topics. Like, it was more of like speaking about different topics. For example, it'd be like gender equality, just like so many different topics I would find just to like enrich our minds, right? So we'd meet up like every single week. And then after those meetings, I was like, what, maybe I could start a YouTube channel and, just talk about more about different things that, I feel interested to talk about. So I started a YouTube channel, and I had like a very positive audience. And currently, for instance, you might as well go subscribe to my channel.
Promo.
YouTube. Anyway, yeah. So after that, so it was like the meetings and then the YouTube channel. And then I remember it was a time on International Day of the Girl Child. I had a virtual event. Yeah, had a virtual event, and people attended that. And I was like, okay, so after this, I'd like to reach more people, because so far it's been virtual, and I'd love to reach more young people in person. And the aim of Teens Meet was actually to show young people that they have the potential, they have the capability, that they should also start working with their dreams and talent. Have more young people, out there, showcasing what they have within them. So during that first one, I was like, I reached out to the people that I knew who are doing great things. For example, I remember having you as a speaker there as well, and, a writer, poet. So I tried to reach out to different people who are doing great things, and so that they could also meet there as speakers to inspire their fellow young people. So that's how the first one started. I guess it started from the people within my circle. And and it was successful, actually. So for that first one, it was 120 young people who attended, which was actually quite a huge. It was a huge number for the first event. And even now, I'm actually proud to say, like, I'm very happy that we've reached 750 people, like, just throughout all the events that we've done. So I'd say that's how the first one started. It was a build up on different things that happened along the way.
I love that.
Yeah.
So throughout the event planning, let's look into, if someone wants to do something like you, if somebody wants to inspire people, what's the best advice you'd give them when it comes to planning an event, right? Coming to organizing something.
All right, so if someone does want to organize something, I would say, so first of all, try to find your audience, because you could run similar events, but then it could be within your school, which could be a slightly easier way to do. So maybe you could start a club at your school, whereby you meet with different students in your school and, try to have sessions or workshops and build them up. However, if you're trying to go for a bigger event, I'd say first of all, you need sponsorship, because it really does, like, the costs will come. It's so much cost that incur to actually hold this event. Let's say sponsorship. However, do reach out to people that you know, because you need speakers. So you need people who who are doing the things that your event, theme of your event, Yeah, so I'd say that. And venue as well. Venue is very important. So if you do have somewhere where you can host the people, do consider the venue.
Okay, that's great. Anyone who wants to have an event, Doreen's Instagram is going to be linked to this episode, so you can talk to her and ask her if you're doing any question. So when I, those YouTube videos where people watch and they're like, tell us the story behind this picture, on your Instagram. So this is an audio podcast, yeah, but I'm gonna pull out your Instagram right now, which is at Doreen Ngemera. Follow our Instagram. And there are a bunch of pictures on this Instagram, 122. We're gonna pick five
pictures,
and they're gonna tell us what was going on in this picture, what you love about it. Like, just tell us a little bit something. So I'll just scroll, and then you'll tell me to stop.
All right, stop. Wow. Okay, stop.
Okay, I got this one here. Wow. Okay, this is your school.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right,
tell us a bit about it.
So in this picture, it's actually a day called UWC Day, which in our school, I go to a UWC school, and there's 18 schools around the world. So every year we celebrate UWC schools, and the aim is to celebrate the diversity that exists within our schools, because there's so many people around the world that do come to the school and we all meet up at this one big school, right? And in this picture, it's actually a picture with everyone, in their national costumes, their national flags. And I think this picture really I see so much because there's people with diverse backgrounds. So people who come from, their stories, if you listen to their stories, are actually very, the things that they go through, they're actually very, very shocking and terrible, yet, of course. However, I'd see that we all came as one in this picture to take this picture, because you'd find for some people, their countries are at war against each other. However, in this picture, they all united as one. So let's say peace begins with us. Like, even that's what the caption of this picture shows. So yeah.
Diversity to me is something beautiful, because it would be pretty boring if the world was just like one for
exactly.
And it's beautiful to get to know different people in different places and different stories.
Yeah.
Okay. So another way. Okay.
Stop.
Okay. This is from December 2021. What?
Oh, okay.
You and your brother in a video.
All right. So, okay. Wow. Okay. So I remember this picture. It was a day where we decided to plant 500 trees when we traveled to Cuba. And the reason for
homeland,
right? Exactly, the homeland. We decided to mobilize like the community members and the fellow young people to come together to plant 500 trees mainly to fight against climate change. Because as we all know, I remember taking this trip on my way to the location. I saw, I take this trip like almost every year. And usually along the way, I usually look at the different trees. However, on that year, things were different. Like, trees were burnt down, trees were cut down, and I was like, you know what? We need to do something to combat what's happening. So we decided to plant trees, and in this video, it's actually reflecting on our activity and how a small act may seem small, but the difference it makes is great.
Wow, I like that. I love how you always look at a problem and think of a solution, because main thing people struggle with, and I don't want to be I don't want to say it's just in Africa, but it's like people will tell you, or in the education system, is that they'll tell you that this is what's wrong, but what are we going to do about it? Like, they're not, and that's why it's beautiful when people stand up and they do something about problems that they're seeing. I'm having a lot of fun with this game, so it's fun. Please. All right. I'm gonna stop. All
right, stop.
Oh, I went into your phone.
Oh, okay.
1, 2, 3.
All right, stop.
Okay.
The dates.
Is it April 8th?
Oh, okay, April 8th of this year. All right, okay. This is very recent. So this was me at a creative writing workshop that I organized during my April break, so during my school break. And it was to bring young people together to learn how they can improve their writing. So it was young people who are very passionate about writing, aspiring to be great writers someday. So I wanted to use my passion as well as a writer and the skills that I have to also, give them some knowledge and skills. And actually the aim of this was to write stories that did shine light on the different issues that young people are facing. So this was, yeah. And actually in this picture, I can see that I had on a flip chart, strengths, weaknesses, and capabilities. So in this specific picture or session on that day was mainly them reflecting on what are their weaknesses, what are their strengths, what are their capabilities, and what can they do about them.
Yeah, I remember being at that session.
You were there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was like, this picture's so familiar. One thing I loved about the session is that you were able to bring kids of different ages there.
Yeah.
And you could see that they had the drive to write. I think people need to there needs to be more workshops that teach people how to take their passions and make something good out of it. And I know the whole intention of the workshop was to get stories centered around children.
Yeah.
And I've read some of the stories, and I've seen that kids have ideas of their modern day problems. A lot of books that are written by adults they're not really kids, so they don't know what kids are going through. Obviously, there are wide spectrum, worldwide problems like poverty, child labor, but there are also these little things that kids in certain environments face, like bullying, or bullying because of that poverty. Like there are little problems that like spark through from those massive ones that everyone is focusing on, and they do need to be talked about because there are little kids who feel as though their problems are not talked about, so they don't really know, like, find their last problems, and later on they build up into bigger things.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
Kids need to be able to express themselves, and if it's through writing, people need to encourage them to do so, and you're doing a very good job at that. So we have 2 more pictures.
More. All right.
I'm going to stop.
Okay. All right. Stop.
Here. This is January 22nd of this
January 27th. Okay, 22nd of this year. All right. So this was a post that I decided to do, like a mini takeaway of what I got from that week. So this takeaway says, take each day one step at a time, one step, one day at a time.
Okay.
So this is really focusing on how we should take each day one step at a time. You know, it's so easy for us to focus on what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen in the future, and actually neglect on what's happening in the present, you know? Or, you know, and doing that really does get you anxious sometimes. You're like, oh, what's going to happen tomorrow, you know? But you really don't focus, you don't spend time in the present, that you don't even acknowledge maybe the people around you, or, you know, the great things that are happening to you in that moment. So this was more of, you know, just being more grateful to what's happening to you in that moment, the present moment, and taking one step at a time, because sometimes it can really help. Like, you don't have to take everything all at once. Like, little by little, you can actually achieve what you want to do, you know?
That's something I've been learning recently, because I'm on my break and I'm going to school.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about school so much. I'm having like dreams. 23rd of January, 2001. And it is
Okay.
It's Eid.
Oh, okay. So 2021. Okay. All right. So as I mentioned before a bit in this podcast, I also have a YouTube channel, and this was me, you know, informing people that I just posted a new video. And I remember this video I had watched a movie, actually. I don't know if you know, it's called Soul. It's animation. And from that movie, I learned so much. And, you know, I was like, okay, I want to create a video reflecting on the lessons that I learned from this movie. And I don't think I would remember the lessons that I learned specifically, because it was like 20 years ago. I mean, 2 years ago.
Oh my God.
How old are you? Or it was 2 years ago. However, I do remember one thing is that this person was trying to just live in the moment, actually. You know, enjoy the little things like breathing fresh air, just enjoying, you know, the music on the streets. And it really did, you know, make me appreciate what was happening. Yeah. So this was a video that I posted on my YouTube channel.
I love watching movies that make you kind of see the world in a different perspective. It's just like, I remember watching Patch Adams in 2021, which was a movie about this this guy who had a mental illness and he was suicidal. And he went to the hospital and he saw other people who were also had like were mentally challenged. And he got a spark to live, seeing that he wanted to help people. So when he went back to med school and everything, and watching that movie kind of made me realize that, like, if you're focusing on your problems in life, and you're just like always going to be like sad, you're always, you need to see how you can make the world a better place, and that's going to give you a purpose.
Yeah. Also, if you do focus on your problems so much, like, can see like your life's, you know, like so many bad things are happening to you, and you're not really focusing on the bigger picture. Like, there's other people, you know, around you, so it's not just you.
Yeah,
so it's good to just get out of.
It's good to get out of there. So now we are finally going to be talking about your YouTube channel.
Okay.
We're going to touch kind of everything about starting a channel. Starting a channel here. By here, I mean like in Tanzania, because we don't have many like YouTubers kind of like us. True. Starting a channel here, equipment, what goes on into making the video. Like, just tell us everything, and then if you haven't touched something, we can ask more questions on.
Okay. All right. So in terms of starting a channel, of course, the first thing you gotta know the basics, open your channel, your account, and then you gotta fill in the little details like your name, what's your channel all about. And then, you gotta have an idea, like what exactly do you want your videos to be upon? So you need to find your niche. If it's like, say, like daily vlogs, like, just about your life, or if it's inspirational videos, or if it's you talking about something. Or for example, for you, you do talk, post your podcast on there, right?
Yeah.
So it's finding what you want to do first of all. And then after that, in terms of equipment, of course, you need to have a device where you're going to record your videos on. How I actually started with my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I just used my phone, and then I didn't even have a fancy stand. I just used like a pile of books, and then they would just place my phone right there, and I'd record my videos. So, and then over time, then I got a ring light to just make the lighting better. However, I would say if you're just recording, can be yourself talking or it's vlogs, if your phone camera is pretty good, then, you can get you set. And then after, if you've had a wider audience, let's say like maybe the point where you can get monetized on YouTube, let's say like 1,000 subscribers, then over there, then you can go on to get a proper camera, which would suit your needs. However, I'd say starting a YouTube channel in Tanzania, I think it's much different compared to other countries because first of all, the support and the people who would watch the videos, because like people won't see the videos. For example, like I know my, the video that I posted so far with like the highest views is in the 500s. However, there's still, people are still, people do watch YouTube, but still like the support for people to actually subscribe,
And I don't think the YouTube algorithm kind of pushes these kind of videos out. Because the only thing that you'd see, unlike if you start up your account,
yeah,
and you haven't searched a single thing, everything that's going to be on your YouTube feed is a music video.
Yeah.
Breaking news. Like nothing that's like really aside from those like big, I don't know how to say it. You get my point, right?
Yeah. You'd actually see like the big artists.
Yeah.
I don't like that. Dancing video,
Yeah.
There's like that.
So unless you were like frequently searching Doreen Ngemera's YouTube video, like it's gonna be
exactly.
So YouTube, I don't know if like the YouTube isn't working over here and trying to push in those things, but yeah. So again, being in this place, in our country, has there been anyone who's directly given you hate for starting YouTube video? Not necessarily hate, but more of like not being the best person about it.
Not really. Like so far, I think ever since I started my video, there's been people, following up on the videos, the content, and so far it's been positive feedback. Like even on my comments, like people are like, keep doing what you do, congrats. That's very inspirational, things like that. So far, not really. Haven't really gotten specific hate towards my YouTube channel. So I'd say that's a positive. Like that's something I'm happy about.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great. And throughout posting your videos, do you ever kind of think about how your video is going to be perceived by other people, or like is that something that like bugs you a lot? Or if it does, how can you help someone else is going through the same thing?
All right, okay. So I think one of the things that I think I used to, I wouldn't say struggle, but like I had to learn how to deal with is, of course, the videos that I used to post, I was like I started this channel when I was still in like still in high school, like middle school era. Yep, that era. And, people from school, and then people from school would, no, wait, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. Yeah, this part, yeah. Okay, yeah. So I'm saying, so during when I used to post these videos, when I actually started, I would post, of course, how to get motivated, how to have a productive day and stuff like that. And then I think, sometimes I wouldn't say peer pressure, but like I just start thinking like, what would my friends think about this? Man, those thoughts, like, what would my friends think about this?
Yeah.
It feels like I'm like,
I don't want to see it.
Exactly. I don't want to be like, what, like it would feel like I'm doing the most to them. Like I wouldn't want to come off as that, right? So I think about that, and sometimes I wouldn't really post for like 2 weeks, and then but then my parents were like, why aren't you posting? You're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna post that plan. So yeah, like I think, just thinking about like what your friends would think about you, it's like you're doing too much. So I think that feeling, I get it a lot, like sometimes, but then now I've learned how to deal with it. So it's more of, again, just sticking to you. Like,
it's how have you learned? Like, what exactly, like, changed the narrative for you?
What exactly changed the narrative? I'd say, first of all, just taking time away from doing what I was doing. Like, just You have to reflect, like, literally, just if you think like you can, like it's to the point where it's affecting your mental health, thinking too much about what other people are going to talk about your channel, it's like, or what you do in general.
Yeah.
I'd say first, just take some time away to think and reflect. Just, you can stop. It doesn't have to be for like a month, even a few days, right? Just think, okay, it's fine. You can even reflect, just journal, all right? And then after that, think about your why. Why did you start?
The funny thing is when you were saying, so, okay. I think it's time for me to give my story. I'm your story, girl. Your story. Okay. So back in like 2020 COVID era, I think that's when everything started.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a podcast thing, but it was more like video podcasts with people, and they weren't even in TZ. Like they were.
Actually, I remember us doing something similar.
Yeah, I was on it, right? You were on it too.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I did it, and then I was so scared of people I know seeing it. And I don't know why I was so scared. I was intensely uncomfortable. And if anyone ever mentioned it, I would want to cry, and I would want to just like the earth to swallow me up.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hated that feeling for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then I took a break for 2 years.
Okay.
I took a 2-year break.
Okay, girl.
Because I realized that if I was so uncomfortable like that, why was I like? I knew my why. Like I wanted to talk to people because I love talking to people, and I wanted to like get something out of a conversation with people and other people hear it so they can be inspired. But maybe that wasn't the best way for me.
Mm-hmm.
So after like 2 years, I've been in school, so I was really busy. I didn't really have time to sit down and think like I did back in COVID.
Yeah.
And then during my break this time, I was like, you know what? I'm kind of comfortable with like just talking to people and like having the audio out there.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided to start the podcast and like do that. So I think something else that helps if you're like really intensely uncomfortable and people seeing it, it's like finding something that you're comfortable with. Like you don't want people to see you can do something else that's like, but like never forget your why.
Yeah, never forget. I was stressing that for sure. Because I have no idea, because I think it's a common feeling, because like, now that you mentioned it, because, I used to think like, what would like my friends say about this? Like, I mean, like, you know them, like, you know them, you see them every day, but like, why? I don't know. Like, I don't know, maybe it's like judge, like, I don't know, you feel like they judge.
And it's maybe. Like, I feel if they judge you, they're not your friends.
Yeah.
They're not your friends.
Exactly. I think that's another thing that I learned, like, if it's your actual friend, they wouldn't make fun of you,
Yeah.
And they would actually support you. You know what? Keep going, And also remember your why, like, for real. And also have that support network. And if it's your parents, your friends, someone who would actually, like, remind you, girl, post. Like, that's really helpful. But I'd say find your why and take time to reflect. And again, as you mentioned as well, find what works for you.
You need to find what
works for you.
Yeah. Okay. Something we kind of haven't talked about at all is climate action.
Okay.
I want to get into that. I talked to someone a month ago, I think, and I was talking about global warming and climate change, and they were like, I don't really think that's a problem for me right now. It's gonna happen in 100 years, so I don't really need to care. It was like, come on, So, you being a climate activist, talk to us about climate change. Like, I don't know what climate change is. I've never heard of it. I don't know what global warming is. I don't even know what climate is. So, kind of educate me.
All right. So, so when we talk about climate change, of course, it's the change. So, I think
it's a change in climate.
Exactly. It's a change in climate. It's like, it's like an overall, like, over a long period of time, that change in climate, the weather patterns, taken over a long period of time. And actually, I'd like to answer this through the answer the person gave you. Like, it's going to happen, the changes are going to happen to me like in 100 years from now, right? However, the changes are happening currently, right? There's people who are facing the impacts of climate change in this moment, even probably as we speak, right? And climate change really does have many impacts. For example, the unpredictable weather patterns, high rise in temperatures, drought, all that. And I'd say, let me give us a small example. For example, in Tanzania, I'd say there's agriculture is pretty much a big sector, right? And these farmers who deal with agriculture, who are involved in the agriculture sector, depend on rainfall. And one of the impacts of climate change is, of course, unpredictable weather patterns and high rise in temperature. And these, of course, they do suffer the consequences of these. For example, I remember last year, there was a period of time when I went to visit my grandmother, and she's telling me how they haven't really had so much rainfall. For example, they do have some crops, and those crops have died because of the lack of rainfall that they faced. And these are all results of climate change. Like, climate change is affecting many people. So there's even people, for example, I'd give another example. In Malawi, for example, they had this cyclone that happened in, I think, February or something, early this year. So that also is a result of climate change, unpredictable or like extreme weather events, So people are facing the issue, and it's real. Like, I would say it's real. So I hope, this kind of gave you an example,
Something else a lot of people say, apart from it being like, oh, it's going to happen later, is something like, there's nothing I can do to change it.
Okay.
And it seems so, because you look like your influence is really tiny, but we need all those tiny influences.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you have a big one. So what is some practical ways a normal person can contribute to slowing?
Okay. So with that, actually, I'll give two examples, like two stories. Actually, I have two stories. So the first one, I remember going to Slipway, actually, right? And then I won't say the specific shop that I went to. However, I went there and I wanted to get a drink. And with that drink that they gave me, they gave me a straw with it. And then it was a plastic straw, right? So I asked them, so do you have paper straws? Because I know paper is, it's biodegradable. So I asked them, do you have paper straws? And you're like, oh, no, we did have that like 2 months ago. However, we decided it's changing because customers were complaining that, paper straws were getting melt and stuff like things like that, right?
Have you seen the meme where it's like, this straw is biodegradable, but it's biodegrading in my drink?
Exactly. Exactly. So with that, people are like complaining. So then this store, which did deal with paper straws, they decided to change back to plastic straws, right? It's for profit, right? However, people don't realize, like, I'd like to say, like, people, the small actions that they can take in their day-to-day lives really does matter. For example, choosing to go with paper straws or plastics.
Like, you were still gonna drink your drink.
Yeah,
and you calm down.
Like, can you imagine like the big influence that the customers had on that small shop, right? Because now they're gonna be providing plastic straws. However, before they did provide paper straws.
Like, the shop had good intentions.
Exactly.
That's the pipe that's a problem, right?
And another thing I'd say is, I did a niche cleanup once. It was on World Environment Day, and on that day, I spoke to some locals around, and at that niche there were dustbins, trash cans around. However, people, whenever they still do visit the niche, they just throw away their trash anywhere. Like, the trash can is literally right there, but they don't really use them, right? So I'd say, like, people to take these small actions, like don't litter, switch to more, sustainable practices, such as, avoiding the use of plastic bottles or, plastic straws in, for example. Like, I'd say even taking part in, like, beach cleanups. If you hear that's a beach cleanup somewhere, take part in that. Planting trees, and actually another thing to give maybe is, at our homes, right? The gardens that we have. I have an uncle who, at his home, he actually grows his own vegetables and stuff, right? And the things that he uses, he doesn't buy his vases at some place, right? He actually uses plastic bottles and he carves them, and he makes use of that, right? He makes use of that. So I'd say it's just finding innovative ways to deal with the plastic waste that we have and changing your daily habits a bit. I'd say it really does help.
I think a small step goes a long way.
It really does. Collective action, I'd say, like, those small actions really do lead up to collective impact.
Yeah. Given my direct society, people have just made the whole climate change and global warming and waste, such a source of humor for them, and such that it's like people take the things so lightly. And even in our immediate societies, like our families, we have people who litter, and you can tell them, don't litter, because, it's not good for the environment.
Yeah.
And it's just that there needs to be awareness that what you're doing isn't right. Because one thing that I hate that people say is that if there's a mess already on the road, then you have your little plastic, they'll be like, it's already messy. It's already messy.
Exactly.
Like, do you really want to contribute to the mess? Like, do you want to be that person? So it's always about thinking about how much, like, human you can be, be a good human. Like, that's the least you can do.
Exactly.
A good human. Yeah, okay, so I think that's all for my questions. Do you have anything that you'd like to tell people, promote about you, or whatever, anything you'd like to say?
Okay. So one thing, if you are a young person listening, I would say find what you're passionate about. Like, for example, Ngemera, and I ask her what she's passionate about, I can see it's like talking to people, getting the different views about people, and she started her podcast. If you ask me what I'm passionate about, so you're writing and, or inspiring my fellow young people, it's empowerment, climate change, and I'm taking action on what I'm passionate about. We're taking action on what we're passionate about. So I'd say find something that you like doing and look for ways you can get involved.
Yeah.
Apart from that, you can get yourself a copy of my novel, Alice Unlocked, at the City bookstores if you're in NAR, at the bookstore in Mimani City, also in Leeds bookstores in Bezi. So you can get that, or you can just go to my Instagram at Doreen Ngemera and just reach out to me like, hey, I'd like to have a copy of your book. Or, you can just reach out to me. Apart from that as well, I'd say go check out my YouTube channel, Doreen Ngemera, and subscribe as well. I'll be actually starting a new series whereby I'll be spreading climate education. So, just talking about climate change. So if you're someone who, likes to get interested and be like, what is climate change? What can I start doing as a young person? Or if you're not young, but like, what can I start doing
as a person?
Exactly.
As a good human.
As a good human.
Yeah.
As a good human. What can I do? So you can just check out my YouTube channel. And I'd say if you're a young person as well, always check out my my Instagram page and follow up on any announcements for whenever I'll be holding up the next Teens Meet events. Like just, follow up, and pretty sure, I'd say that's one thing I'd like to say.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing, don't forget your why. If you're doing something,
don't forget your why.
And just keep going, keep going, and you will reach great heights.
I'm gonna say something else after this. Otherwise, that's the last thing. But like, I love how you said that you need to find your passion and you need to do something about it, even if everyone around you thinks it's not fun or it's not whatever. Like, you need to do something with your passion. If you want to do something, do it. Again, find what you're comfortable with and just do it. Like, there's gonna be uncomfortability somewhere, but you just need to. Yeah.
Also, something I'll say is if you choose to start, don't start tomorrow or, next week, next year. Start now. Like, if you ever had, like, sometimes you just have to start in that moment, because you will never start if you keep telling yourself, I'll start tomorrow.
If you need help, find someone who does what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
If you need help, search it up and, just get to it and do it.
Yes, have look for inspiration, people who are doing the things that you would want to get into, and, reach out to them. I would actually reply. So, yeah.
Yeah. I just got one more question. I don't know.
Actually.
Throughout like your events and everything that you've done, have there been any collaborations? How did those work out, and how are those going for you?
Okay, so I actually do partner with this organization called Damac Solutions, which is a consultancy, and they usually deal with so many different issues. For example, centered around children, or it could be, doing different research. So they're really, they're also they're interested in the movement that I do. So I do collaborate with them, Damac Solutions. However, I would mention as well, I'm happy that I was chosen to be a United Nations Youth Fellow for, associations.
You didn't mention that. Like,
I don't know how to mention it, but yeah, I'm also a United Nations Youth Fellow, and I usually do different outreach campaigns. And I'm currently I'm planning to do one on like climate change as well. Just spreading climate awareness to students in school. So that's something else that I'm engaged in.
What about people?
People as well. So I do collaborate with different people. For example, in the climate change sector, I've collaborated with like Shamim. Also you as well, like you. However, yeah, I can't really remember everyone's names right now, but I have collaborated with different people, and they're really great. Yeah, I'd say collaborating with people also does help, and helps you grow your network as well. And
you need to find people who are positive influences in it.
Exactly.
And like keep them in the loop, keep them in the chain. And yeah, okay, that's great. I absolutely enjoyed this conversation with you. I didn't even feel like I had to think about my questions. I just wanted to know.
Especially the game. Like, I think that just brought back so many memories. I'm like, oh,
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for being here. And to anyone who's listening, if you're on YouTube, her media and everything's going to be linked down below. And she's mentioned it several times throughout the podcast, so you can just check out her Instagram, YouTube, and etc. So thank you.